Good morning. We may think of tillers and rakes as traditional gardening equipment, but there were a whole lot of things available well before tillers were available. And we're here with Dr. Sarah Wissaman, who's a researcher here at the University of Illinois. And you brought out a whole bunch of things for us to look at here. But first, kind of where did these samples come from?
They came from long-term excavations by the Illinois Transportation Archaeological Research Program, which collaborates with the Department of Transportation and the university. And they've been working in Illinois for over 50 years. So everything you see here behind me is from excavations in this state.
So when new highways go in, they're there to excavate things and make sure nothing gets lost. Oh, great, good. Well, I think probably the first thing people are seeing corn and soybeans in the field, and corn didn't really start out to be this huge plant, and I think you have some interesting displays here.
Yes, in fact, the earliest types of corn were much smaller, and you see some archaeological specimens here actually from the southwest United States. But as time goes on, we get larger kernels and larger cobs.
So this is the size of the cob. They're so little. It's hard to believe. So then from there, so in the beginning it would have been gathering, those kinds of things, but then later on we start actually getting this cultivation of crops.
That's correct, and corn comes in as a major crop quite late, about 800 AD, and before that we have a whole bunch of small kind of weedy plants, starchy and oily seeds that are up here on the wall. So we've got goosefoot, which is also called chenopodium, and knotweed, little barley, maygrass, and then the oily seeds are sumpweed or marsh elder and sunflower. And of course sunflower is the most the one we know the best and that we still eat today.
Yeah, but the heads are much bigger now, and the seeds are much bigger than they used to be. So it's kind of interesting when we were first talking about the gourds, as actually some of them started out quite small, really.
That's right, and that one is probably the oldest thing on this table. That goes back to about 4000 BC, and it wasn't used primarily for food, though the seeds were edible. It was used technologically for things like floats on fishing nets and rattles and small containers. And this guy above it, which is actually a gourd, a bottle gourd, again, valued primarily as a container.
Okay, great. And so tools, I was talking about tillers and hoes and stuff. So they had to have something a bit before that. So these are really interesting. I like these axes.
Yeah, well, you need something to clear the land with. So you have axes for either chopping or girdling trees, and then you can slash and burn everything around you to make a small plot for your starchy and oily seeds. And then early on they use hoes like this one here, which is basically a mussel shell with a hole in it and a stick and some rawhide to hold it in place, and you can use that for mild cultivation.
So that makes a pretty good hoe. I like this one.
Now that's a substantial earth-moving weapon.
Yeah, I guess so. I like this. That's particularly nice. And then even, you were talking about, and I was allowed to, you said I could touch these things.
Yes, absolutely.
So this was actually, this is from a bison?
Yeah, that's a bison scapula, and you can see you can move quite a bit of earth with that.
So they put a handle on it?
Yes, they would put a wooden handle on it.
So pretty ingenious kind of things. So, and in the next segment we're actually going to look more at sort of some harvesting tools, some preparation kinds of tools, and a little bit of kind of ancient gardening this time. Of harvesting, we may think of tractors, but those weren't always available, and we're here with Dr. Sarah Wissaman, who's with the University of Illinois, and you actually have some things before tractors were available. Why don't you tell us some of the things that are here?
Well, if you happen to have a handy deer jawbone lying around, you could cut down your grain like this.
And certainly many years ago, those would have been available, so pretty handy.
They'd be available, and deer is certainly another foodstuff that people are using. And here are some examples of grain here. We have archaeological chenopodium or goosefoot here with knotweed, and then the modern cousin of goosefoot is quinoa. So in those two petri dishes there. Then we have other kinds of food besides these early grains. People are collecting nuts and fruits, and after they collect the nuts, they're using different implements to extract the nut meats and prepare them, so you could crack the nut.
And certainly in this area, walnuts, hickory, acorn, those would have all been available to folks to, to eat.
And then in order to make some of the grains, you grind them up using with a fair amount of water. So this is a prehistoric saucepan here, and we actually did some experiments making our own pots and putting modern quinoa in here, filling it up with water and boiling on an open fire for about 20 minutes with a pot-shirred lid. And then we seasoned it with maple syrup and walnut oil.
So what was the, did you like it? What do you think?
I thought it was quite tasty.
And if it was all you had, then that probably was a pretty good thing, then, wasn't it? That's good. Well, that's good. And you did a nice job of that. Very nice. And they actually have a very large piece of equipment here.
Yes, the largest piece of equipment in this show. This is probably a historic period corn mill, so you can see it's cut out of the trunk of a tree. And this is for when you have major farming of corn and you have a lot of stuff to process.
And good exercise, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of course, they weren't worrying about exercise back then. It was just a way of life, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sarah Wisman. And I know this isn't normally on display, but these are very important examples of archaeological things that have been found here in Illinois. And what program is this with, then?
This is the Illinois Transportation Archaeological Research Program. It's a joint program with the University of Illinois and the Illinois Department of Transportation.
So when highways go in, then they're there to make sure nothing gets lost.
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I hope people have a great day gardening. We'll see you next week.